Hello, this is Laura Richcreek with Laura's Voice. Welcome to Season 2 of Laura Reads Foxed Books. This is a serialized presentation of Eleanor Hoyt's 1902 romantic comedy, The Misdemeanors of Nancy. We're on Episode 4, Chapter 4, this week. But what's nice about this particular book is that you can jump into any one of the chapters and it's kind of a self-contained story. But if you like to start at the beginning, like I do, please go back to Episode 1 where you'll meet Nancy, Priscilla, Bobby. Whether you like to jump right in or you've been following along, then let's get into Chapter 4, A Good Lie Gone Wrong. Oh, Nancy. Chapter 4, A Good Lie Gone Wrong. Now there is a man who doesn't believe a word I say, remarked Nancy calmly as the lawyer walked away. The man who came often looked injured.
Where did you know him so well?
He asked with the acid accent that rejoices the heart of a woman. Your inference isn't flattering, Bobby, but your jealousy is. So I'll forgive you. I find it easy to forgive a nice man anything save a lack of interest in me. It really makes very little difference to me whether he is interested in my faults or my virtues, so long as the interest is there. So you don't believe me either?
I didn't say that.
But you know me so well, and it is a poor syllogism that will not work backwards. Do be logical, Bobby. It's the proud prerogative of your sex, and you really must cling to a few rights, in spite of the new woman. Now, I do not pretend to logic, but I take off my hat to it when I meet it in a man. There have been moments when I've suspected myself of a leaning towards logic, but I've always taken strenuous precautionary measures whenever I saw the symptoms. I wear a rabbit's foot and a white elephant to ward off the calamity. Heaven deliver me from a logical woman! I would rather wear bloomers than logic. I'd consider it less of an infringement upon masculine privileges.
But where did you know him so well? Persisted the man who came often.
Now, curiosity is distinctively a feminine vice, continued Nancy reflectively. From Adam down, men have been devoid of it. That's why they have so much room for logic in their makeup. When you look as vicious as that, Bobby, I feel that I could almost love you. I've hoped at times that you would shake me violently when I didn't behave well. Your amiability is the one lamentable thing about you. When I was younger than I am now, I read that somewhere down in Africa, there is a tribe in which the regular method of courtship is for the love-smitten man to hit his adored one on the head with a club. If she lives and regains her senses, she feels firmly convinced that he loves her. That book gave me a mighty leaning toward the field of foreign missions, but I dare say it's all spoiled down in Africa now. Probably effete modern notions have crept in with the explorers and missionaries, and the man has put away his stuffed club and sends his lady violets and chocolates. This is treachery to my sex, Bobby. But mark my words, if you want a woman to adore you, beat her. Don't nag at her. That's maddening. And don't be patient with her. That's fatal.
But why doesn't he believe you?
My dear young friend, in your last incarnation you were either a bulldog or a leech. Your stick-to-itive powers are more than human. He doesn't believe me because... Bobby, this is a very sad tale. A most mortifying tale. I don't figure nobly in it. Are you sure your affection for me will stand the strain?
It has had the tests that make me feel measurably certain of it, said the man who came often.
Well, once upon a time, I visited my aunt in a small Massachusetts town. Some way or other the fact that the scene is laid in Massachusetts makes my bad behavior seem worse than it would in a New York setting. In Kentucky or California, I'm positive anything short of breaking all the commandments wouldn't give my conscience a flutter. But my aunt did live in Massachusetts. So did the judge. He was the youngest judge in the state. The other lawyers said he didn't know any law, but that he could make a hitching post vote for him if he turned his eloquence loose on it. That's much better than knowing law, Bobby. When I went there to visit, the hitching posts had all been won over, and the golden-tongued orator didn't have anything to practice upon. No, Bobby, this isn't a disguised advertisement of Bryan and free silver. I hate ghost stories. This is a simple tale of love and war. Well, as I said, material was needed. Somebody has remarked that genius implies two individualities, a brain to conceive and a brain to receive. I was willing to be offered up on the altar of genius. I've always said that I would rather be a part of a man's great success than have a pale, anemic little success of my own. I have contributed to a great many successes, Bobby. That's a comfort to me in my darkest hours. So I saw the judge very often. He is the most entertaining man I have ever known. I entirely understand the hitching post's point of view. I would have voted for him for any state or municipal office. There were times when I felt that I could give him my vote even if he were proposed, or did propose for a private and domestic holding. There were other men. They were needed to keep the judge at his best. One may wipe the other men out of the foreground of the picture, Bobby, but it is always well to have them hovering in the middle distance so that occasionally one of them may be brought forward as a pacemaker. The judge says that he is Irish. I have a firm conviction that his ancestors lived in Africa and understood the use of the stuffed club. His system was a 19th century translation of the original African version. I liked it. I really did. I had never been bullied and adored at one and the same time by a distinctly vertebrate being, and the sensation was pleasant, but awesome. I was just a little bit afraid of him. The summer went by pleasantly enough, and when October came, I wasn't as interested as I had been. Or, yes, I was as interested, but I had grown used to the sensation. It was like taking a tonic. One finally reaches a point where the tonic doesn't spur the system. Caviar and cocktails lose their effect if taken regularly. That's a great natural law, Bobby. That ought to be in the Manual of Compulsory Education for Young Men and Women in Love. The other day I saw in a magazine a column headed, First Aid to Wounded Hearts. I feel that I could make such a column both edifying and helpful. Do you know, Bobby, the Chinese have some very knowing proverbs. One of them is engraved on a charm that was given to me by a Chinese student at Harvard. Did you ever see a Chinese man in love? But that's another story. About this proverb, it looks like a dismembered spider, but my Chinese man said it meant, do nothing too much. I wish I had a pocketful of those charms, Bobby. I'd like to distribute them among the men I know best. The judge was well educated, but he needed to read the Chinese classics. He was delightful, but I yearned for novelty. Even the maids have their Thursday afternoons and Sunday evenings off. Just when my yawn was getting beyond polite control, something happened. The judge had been at the house on Saturday evening, and I had promised to go for a walk with him at 2:00 on Sunday. Not that the judge loved walking, Bobby, but that he hated other Sunday callers. Sunday morning, one of my aunt's friends telephoned to me. She was to have a Cleveland man to dinner. He was rich and handsome and clever and jolly, and he liked all the things I liked, and he could flirt in 6 languages. In fact, he was a registered lady killer, but was himself invulnerable. She wanted me to meet him. I positively must help her. The baby had been croupy all night, and she was a wreck. Her husband was down with grippe and stupid as an owl. Humanity demanded that I should save the paragon of the world from a stupid time. Wouldn't I? Couldn't I come to the rescue and dine with her at 1:00? Now, Bobby, that Cleveland man seemed like a direct answer to prayer. I couldn't consistently turn from the gift of a kind providence. To be sure, there was the judge. He was off in the country for the morning, so I couldn't send him word. Then, too, I doubted his thinking the excuse valid. Men have absolutely no sense of proportion in such matters, and I've often noticed that altruism isn't the magerful man's crowning virtue. I hesitated. I was too fond of the old friend to be willing to offend him, but my soul did thirst for fresh fields and pastures new. I could have stood the wealth, beauty, cleverness, etc., but the lady killer and invulnerable caught me. Never, never should the name of my father's daughter go ringing down the corridors of time with a stigma of cowardice clinging to it. A lady killer and invulnerable? The judge went to the wall. I went to dinner. The blessed baby was croupy enough to need his mother. The father was grippy enough to sleep. The Cleveland Paragon was most of the things in the advertisement. But invulnerable? Well, I don't know. I had thought I might hurry home after dinner and that possibly the judge would wait. So I had ordered the carriage at 2:30. It came, and I offered to set the Paragon down at his hotel. It was a glorious October day. We climbed into the trap. The air was like wine. The Paragon sighed something about the beauty of the country on such a day. I felt that I was retiring from the field too early in the engagement. My heart made one last effort to be true to Pole, meaning the judge. Then I said, "Would you like a country drive?" He would. We had it. At 6:15 I drove up to my aunt's door. The Paragon had been dumped at the hotel. The sun was down. The color had gone out of the day, and the pangs of remorse had set in. I knew I hadn't been decent, and I had an awful conviction that I had offended the judge, and that he wouldn't come around easily. I liked him better than 16 of the Paragon, and I didn't know how to propitiate him. I've always contended that the way of the transgressor is hard to find, but I had found it, and it seemed that the Sunday school books were quite right. I was even ready to believe that a little boy who would fish on Sunday would be drowned. If any other man had been in question, I would have told him the truth calmly and allowed him to like it or dislike it as he chose. But I didn't want the judge to dislike it, or me, and I was afraid of him. Let this story be a warning to you, Bobby. Don't be awesome. You may win the girl by it, but you will probably drive her from the path of childlike frankness and veracity. I said to myself, Nancy, my child, verily, descensus averni is appallingly feculous. You must lie stoutly and consistently. So may you keep your friend with the bad disposition, though you may lose your self-respect. You would probably miss your self-respect much less than you would miss the friend with the bad disposition. Monday morning I called up the courthouse on the telephone. The judge's voice was honeyed. That made me uneasy. I apologized. He quite understood. That was uncanny. I confounded myself in explanations. I descended to trivialities. There I made a fatal error. A well-told lie never goes into details, you know. I told the man at the other end of the phone how worried I had been because I had to go to the dinner, how I hurried home the moment I could escape, how I reached there just after he left, how sorry I was that he was too impatient to wait even a few moments. He said yes, yes to everything. His voice was as the voice of a cooing dove, Bobby. He begged me not to bother my head about the matter. He hadn't misunderstood me for a moment. I rang off. It all seemed too good to be true, and his angelic confidence in me made me feel like a hound dog, as my Virginia cousin would say. But I made an offering to Mercury, god of lies. And that evening I put on my new pink frock. The judge didn't come. He didn't come the next evening. Bobby, he never saw that pink frock. It was worn out before he spent another evening with me. I didn't meet him anywhere in society, for he didn't go out at all during the rest of that winter. Occasionally I did meet him on the street. He was as genial as a May morning. He beamed on me. He even stood by the carriage and talked to me if someone else was with me. Really, you know, it was maddening. I couldn't ask him what was the matter when he gave me no reason to think he was offended, and treated me most amiably. He had a right to stay away from the house if he wanted to do it, and I was too proud to protest. I felt sure there was something wrong about that Sunday business, but what could I do? In February I came home. In June I went back to my aunt's to spend a month. No one knew I was expected, and the day after I arrived I went to a picnic. The judge was there. Everyone was surprised to see me, and he seemed a trifle upset, but was very cordial. In the afternoon the crowd started across the woods to the place where the servants were to have supper ready. The judge happened to walk with me, and I sprained my ankle. I really did, Bobby. No fake at all. It swelled so that my shoe had to be cut. I tried to walk and not make a fuss, but we lagged behind. And finally I couldn't take another step. I just dropped down on the grass and the tears came into my eyes. The judge plumped down beside me and saw the tears. He had never seen me cry before. I seldom do it, Bobby. I have a feeling that crying before a man is taking an unfair advantage, making a dueling opponent stand with the sun in his eyes or something of that kind. I do like a fair fight. Then again, Bobby, I'm a thrifty soul. Tears, like a lie, are too good a thing to be wasted. They should be reserved for crucial occasions. But I cried. My haughty friend thawed slightly. "Why, you poor child, is it so bad as that?" he said. I nodded. Sympathy was the last straw. My ankle did hurt so, and he had been such a horrid brute, and I felt so shamefully abused that I wept floods. It was a disgusting exhibition, Bobby, and I'm not pretty when I cry. My face all screws up and gets swollen and splotchy, but the judge did the only thing a rational man could do, under the circumstances. When I got my breath, Bobby, you can't help being bad-tempered, but you needn't be impolite. You've an evil mind. I was about to explain that I was choked with tears. Well, when I did get my breath, I told him what I thought about his behavior. I was positively eloquent over my wrongs. I would have convinced any jury. "Of course you were not in any way to blame for the coolness," said the judge. "Indeed I wasn't. You never had a better friend." "And that October Sunday?" "I explained about that, and you said it was all right. Why weren't you honest about it? I hate a man who can't tell the truth. Oh, Bobby, didn't I just lay myself open to an uppercut?" The judge smiled. I didn't like that smile. "Yes, I know. I suppose I was unreasonable. You did hurry home and got there just after I left." His tone was queer. It had an unnatural sweetness about it. But there wasn't anything for me to do except stick to my story. "Yes," I said. "Well, my dear young woman, it may interest you to know that when I left your house at 2:03, I called on the girl who lives next door to you. I don't remember her name." "Margaret Wilson," I said faintly. A great light began to dawn upon me. No one ever called on the Wilsons. They were utterly hopeless. "Exactly. I had been invited to call there, but had never intended going. I changed my mind and went. I made a very long call. Miss Wilson was quite fluttered by the sudden burst of appreciation. I suppose she wonders why I never came back. I stayed until I saw you get out of the trap at your door. Then I looked at my watch. It was 15 minutes past 6. I took my hat and went home. I wasn't happy, but I tried to give you the benefit of the doubt. Your telephone story the next morning did away with the doubt. I hate a woman who can't tell the truth. I don't allow any woman to make a fool of me twice." "Oh, Bobby, Bobby, if he is ever like that when he sentences a criminal to death, the poor thing will never live to be hanged." I touched bottom in shame and mortification. He got up and towered over me. He looked horribly big and angry. His tone was enough to wither me. I heard my hair singe. Then suddenly the humorous side of the thing rolled over me like a flood. To think of the touches I gave to that lie, while all the time he knew the truth. How I padded the story and bolstered it up and polished it, and then tied myself up in a hangman's noose, while he listened with that detestable smile. The joke was on me, and I would have appreciated it if I had known I was to die the next moment. I dropped back on the moss and positively howled for glee. Then I had hysterics for the first time in my life. The judge was livid with rage. "I thought you might have the grace to be ashamed of it, but it seems I don't know you yet." I wiped my eyes. "Oh, yes, I'm ashamed, but it's the funniest thing I ever heard." And off I went into more hysterics. He glowered. "Stop that, or I'll lose my temper and shake you," he said. African ancestor to the fore, you see. I sat up and looked defiant. "You're the one to be ashamed," I said. "Are you proud of having such an ugly, vicious disposition, that even your best friend is afraid to tell you the truth, and is driven to lying because she can't depend on your sense of justice, and can't bear the thought of losing your friendship? I wouldn't have lied to anyone else. I hate lies. I had done a foolish thing and was sorry, and I cared such a lot about what you would think, and I knew you wouldn't be manly and kind and, well, Bobby, I'll spare you the details. It was a beautiful piece of special pleading. At the end of it, any judge and jury would have freed the original defendant and sentenced the original plaintiff to be hanged by the neck until he was dead. The judge was most contrite. I finally forgave him. A woman makes a fatal mistake, Bobby, if she ever allows a man to think he is forgiving her. The judge and I have been the best of friends ever since. Only he doesn't believe anything I tell him, unless I swear to it before a notary, and he has his doubts then. That's why he keeps on asking me to marry him. I tell him I can't do it, but he doesn't believe me. It's a most painful thing to have a bad reputation, Bobby. I hope my experience will be a warning to you.
It will, said Bobby, with gloomy significance. Nancy laughed. End of Chapter 4. A Good Lie Gone Wrong. So I'm curious, what do you think of Bobby this whole time? What's going through his mind as Nancy reveals her interactions with the lawyer? He has so few lines, but is ever present, and yet our attention is smack on Nancy. So I'm wondering if you've given him any thought. Let me know in the comments section. Oh, and be sure to check out the enrichment notes in that video. There's a lot there by which to be enriched. This has been The Misdemeanors of Nancy by Eleanor Hoyt and illustrated by Penryn Stanlaws. Original copyright 1902. This work is in the public domain. Production copyright 2025 by Laura E. Rich Creek. Thanks for listening. See you in the next video.